with Real Madrid because we were all excited. We'd all gotten the excuses in early about how they were going to be tired and preseason and blah, 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 blee, blee, blee. And they end up winning 1-0. But I feel like this is one of those games where, yes, they look tired. They look out of sync. A lot of new players. But also, Osasuna parked the bus. So it's the kind of thing where you score straight away, and then maybe you get one result, you go the other way, and you get another result.
Yeah, I think we were just all looking about how Xabi Alonso will set this team up for his first game and look at the structure. And I think the structure was very good, which is the most important. Then with the ball, it was a lot predictable and a bit pedestrian at times, but you could see what they wanted to do. I think once you get the structure in place, and who plays where, and we saw the two wingers, Brahim Diaz and Vini, really wide, and a lot of freedom from Mbappe, and you saw the defenders really high, especially the two wing backs quite inside too. So there was a lot of really good things structure-wise. With the ball, it just needs a bit more time, I think, to get them up to speed to what exactly Xabi Alonso wants. But the structure was good, and for once, they didn't suffer in transitions, didn't suffer in counter-attack football. There was no save to make for Courtois in goal. The rest defense, I think, might still be a bit of an issue, but certainly in terms of defending well, they did that. So I thought it was good.
Yeah, we're going to break this down further because I think it requires more attention, especially whether, Arda Güler in midfield to be that creative spark, which, let's face it, is lacking, is still lacking. Had his moments. We also saw some Mastantuono. But I want to focus on something else, which is the use of the wing backs, because I think that's quite interesting to me in the sense that Carreras comes in and effectively straight into the side.
Yeah.
This means it's lights out for everybody else, you think?
Yeah.
Like you don't think the job is up for grab? Like we might see
No. I think this is pretty much the team plus Bellingham when he comes on, replacing probably Arda Güler or Brahim Diaz, depending on what Xabi Alonso wants to do.
But if he replaces Brahim Diaz, then what? We think Valverde out wide?
Yeah, potentially we'll have to see, or slightly different for Vincius and Mbappe. But yeah, I think certainly the back four and the keeper, that's it.
I think back four to some degree. But there's questions. We'll get to that later, but we have to talk Kylian.
Yeah. Number 10, Kylian.
And also wins a penalty. And kind of, like you said, one of the favorite things people say is that people forget that he scored 40 goals last year for Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So he's on track.
Yeah, he's on track. He looked sharp. He looked good. He was clearly the main threat going forward. I mean, he had 8 successful dribbles compared to 1 for Vincius and 2 for Brahim Diaz, or 2 for Vincius, 1 for Brahim Diaz.
Sorry to jump in, but 8 successful dribbles in a game in which he didn't have a lot of space, in which you had to come back to get the ball. So in other words, it's one thing people have a lot of successful dribble because they play in transition and there's one guy, you knock the ball past them and that's a dribble. But I think the stuff we saw from Vini was different.
Yeah, different. And Vini was the one to come off, not Kylian.
Sorry, Vini. I meant
from Mbappe. Yeah, but Vini was still the first one to come off, and Brahim too, not Kylian. I think there's a lot of responsibilities. I think he likes that a lot. I think this game, as being the first game of the season, still shows that he's the main player now here. He's the main relay to Xabi Alonso on the pitch as well. And that number 10, which he loves, which is the one obviously he has for the national team as well, I think it's very important to him. So it was a good start.
Good start. I think for Mbappe, overall, I think there's a lot of stuff to get into. And I'm going to be kind of the naysayer here. I think you've got a bunch of younger players who are trying to integrate. I think this team feels pretty incomplete to me, and it goes back to the thing that we talked about all the time last season, which is that creativity in midfield.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering whether we might yet see some moves between now and the end of the window. If it does happen, it's going to come out of nowhere because there's absolutely no movement, no suggestion.
Yeah.
Other than the eternal Rodrygo being moved out, presumably to raise money or to plot something later on. And of course, we're going to break that down on the Gab and Juls podcast. But in one sentence, is this team complete?
They're not going to sign anybody, I think.
Is this team complete?
Yeah.
No. But does it look like not? Are they?
I think so.
All right, let's stick to this subject. We were talking about off air. I think we disagree on this point. When I say complete, I don't mean like, will they sign somebody else? Is their work complete? But does this team seem fully well-rounded to you? And to me, it doesn't.
No. I mean, the only one is the Toni Kroos replacement, which I'm not even sure exists, to be fair. So I don't know where they could find it. They could find other options and other solutions for it. Arda Güler might be one. Dean Huijsen in a very advanced position in possession could be another one. I think. I just don't think there's another player like Toni Kroos to go and sign for them. So for me, it's complete because they just can't. They won't find another Toni Kroos.
You're not going to get another Toni Kroos. I think. But I think the question, as we saw last season, was the creativity. Also, I feel like last season, what we banged on about were obviously shorthanded at the back, and they've addressed that, right? The right back position, and they've addressed that. By the way, great to see Dani Carvajal back. I think in certain games, I think he might actually, obviously Trent will be the number one, but I think we might, when you want a different profile, somebody goes outside or whatever, I think he's going to get significant minutes. But in terms of the creativity of the midfield in situations where either you're a goal down or the other team sits deep, that's something that needs to be addressed. I was happy that I saw Dani Ceballos make that little cameo appearance, minute 90. Yeah. But then I look at this and I say, if the Arda Güler passing experiment doesn't work, then Dani Ceballos is your most creative passer in midfield. It's not a great situation to be in if you're Real Madrid.
Yeah, you need to find another solution. I think it's also more controlling the tempo, not so much in this game because Osasuna were very inoffensive anyway, and Real Madrid had control of the game, but it's when the opposition gets better. Not so much the creativity, because creativity can come from wingers, can come from deeper in midfield, Bellingham, Arda Güler, even Mbappe. There's a lot of things you can find. It's more the way Kroos was controlling a game that nobody can do that. I'm always expecting or hoping for Tchouaméni to be able to do that. I think he's got a lot of qualities. I'm just not sure if he will ever get to this level, but for now, he's the guy sitting there in front of the back four. We saw kind of a hybrid Tchouaméni at the Club World Cup. That doesn't seem to be the case. Certainly it was not in this game. There was just a normal back four, no wing backs, no back three, nothing like that. So that might be another option because then you organize your midfield slightly differently than if you play 4-3-3 with a holding player like Toni Kroos used to do before. So that could be another option. But I don't know. I think Xabi Alonso, and we saw that with the ball anyway in this Osasuna game. It's just not, the fluidity is not always there. It's very predictable again. So he needs to find other options what to do with the ball. But yeah, it will always be something that he needs to work on.
We know Real Madrid are going to be dangerous in the one-on-ones, and goals are going to come from that because they have outstanding players. And I think, I think. In midfield, there are players who can, as you said, who can create sort of extemporaneously. Controlling the game is one aspect. He has to impose his patterns of play. That is the other way you create chances, right? Which isn't always easy because you don't have that much time on the training pitch. He had the luxury that he was able to do that throughout the Club World Cup. I remember you saying that it's basically like sort of preseason one.
Yeah.
During the year, they'll be playing twice a week, so there'll be less opportunity to do that. My concern with the patterns of play is to do that, you have to kind of settle on a lineup and then maybe you make changes. And when I look at this lineup, my question is, when Bellingham returns, he's going to start.
Yeah.
And so who do you miss out? How do you rejigger things, right? The obvious thing, I suppose we touched upon it earlier, is you put him in midfield and then you put Valverde.
Yeah,
in the Brahim Diaz position.
Yeah, or you change the system. I mean, there's 3 months to get ready before that. It's not like if Jude was coming back next week or something. So 3 months of you being able to figure things out to get this team without Bellingham. The worry right now for Xabi Alonso is not Bellingham, and where Bellingham fits is get this team going. And as we saw, the structure was there, and you could clearly see what he wanted to do with this starting 11 in that 4-3-3 formation and get them playing better with the ball, with more movement, with more understanding, more patterns, everything. Then you can think about where would Bellingham fit and how he would fit. The one thing about Xabi Alonso is the pragmatism, and sometimes it didn't really work out by Leverkusen. We said many times last season, it was some weird things he was doing in his starting lineup and his system and his formation and his tactics. But I think you can worry about that in 3 or 3.5 months' time. For now, It's just how you make this team better. We saw a team that was playing a lot on the left-hand side. I think 14 of their 17 attacks was on the left-hand side, only 3 on the right-hand side. So why is Trent there for? Why is Brahim there for? It could be Brahim, Rodrygo, it could be Valverde, it could be Güler on that side, it could be anybody really. Clearly the ball was on Carreras and Vini a lot of the time.
Which was the problem last year too.
Yeah, but it was too much for it not to be planned. It's just not like... where the way I watch that game is like, okay, this is what they've worked on. This is the ball goes onto that left-hand side. You bring Carreras a bit inside, and Güler is also in that kind of triangle, and you try to make it work. It was, again, a bit pedestrian at times, but that was clearly the option. The dribbling and the 1v1 that you mentioned, Gabi, was not good enough. Brahim one dribble against Osasuna, Vini 2 dribbles against Osasuna. This is not good enough. There was a few times where they were isolated 1v1. They could have make a difference. They didn't. They really didn't. So there's a few things to work on. And again, for me, most importantly, that rest defense of when you lose the ball, what happens? And they were okay on Tuesday night. There'll be games where they're far more unbalanced, and maybe Bellingham can come into that and help for that rest defense if it's not fixed by then.
I'm intrigued by Heisen. And obviously the level is passing. I'm always hesitant when you have outstanding center backs who pass and say, oh, you can play in midfield. I'm like, yeah, but very different playing in midfield.
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
You're at the back, you got one guy pressing you, and you always have more time on the ball. The midfield is different. But from what we've seen so far, and I think kind of from his past, he certainly has that creativity that is the option. And we talked about it a little bit before. Could there be situations in possession where Tchouaméni kind of drops into the back three maybe and Heisen steps into midfield? And that would be pretty exciting, right? Because you'd have two outstanding passers kind of moving into midfield in him and Trent. I think it's something that needs a lot of work. It's something that I think he wants to implement. When you mentioned there too, the attacks on the left-hand side and Brahim isolated on the other side, obvious thing there is, hey, big diagonal switch and play, right? We see it over and over again. If you can do that. And so find a way to get the ball, if Trent comes inside, find a ball to get the ball to Trent so he can get it out to Diaz or whoever's out on the right side, right? Or maybe have Heisen do the diagonal. I think these are all things that are going to come. I think where he's behind is I think he was hoping, when we said the creativity in midfield, I hate to bring up Camavinga as well, again, for the umpteenth time with his injuries, but I think his development arc, what they were hoping for when they signed him, has definitely been slowed a lot by all the physical injuries that this poor guy's had to deal with.
Yeah.
Can we see it? I know they're different profiles, but both sort of center left in that 3-man midfield. Could we see a Camavinga? Is it basic Camavinga and Güler for that? Are they going to be the ones auditioning?
No, yeah. I mean, different profile, of course, but if you can have a player like Camavinga fit and ready, I think Xabi Alonso can make him improve a lot, and then I think he can have a role to play through the season in this team. But again, for now, it's not the case. He's been really badly hit by injuries the whole last season. I think it's difficult for him, even losing confidence, losing his place in the national team, of course, because he hasn't been playing enough. So I don't know. The fight with Heisen that is interesting is they play so much on the left-hand side because he's the left centre-back too. So the ball comes to him a lot and the ball goes there because that's his side compared to Militao on the right-hand side and Trent. For Trent, I think he was underused in this game. But again, it's normal. It's his first LaLiga game for Real Madrid. Yes, he played in the Club World Cup, but that was already more than a month ago. So you would expect that Trent's role in this team to get better and to improve. Otherwise, I thought he was a bit wasted on Tuesday night in that position before even coming off and Dani Carvajal coming on. And I agree with you. I could easily see Carvajal starting a lot of games ahead of Trent in this team, depending on the opposition. So it's still trying to find the structure is there. It's within that structure you put those pieces, and who brings you the most. But I think for Heisen, he can even be very advanced in possession, like we saw on Tuesday. He played super high. He played very much in the Osasuna half, and have Militao sweeping everything behind him or somebody else. So I think that's interesting to see what kind of role Heisen will have under Xabi Alonso.
When we talk about Xabi Alonso, this is really somebody who's very comfortable in different systems, kind of likes tweaking his systems to find the edge. So I think this is very much potentially an area of growth. Now, the one thing, and I touched upon it before, is that especially as you're experimenting with different systems or you're trying to introduce patterns of play, which, patterns of play, just in terms of terminology and lingo. What we mean by this can exist in different systems. You can have the same pattern of play in a 3-4-3 or in a 4-4-2 or whatever. Then the system is obviously the way you cover the spaces and whatever. My one concern is Mastantuono, Endrick, Gonzalo Garcia. You've got 3 kids in there who presumably you want to give minutes to. Do we think, and obviously there's a trade-off, right? One is I loan one of these guys out so they can play more, but then at the same time, then they need to settle and whatever. What is your guess? Do you think they're all going to stay, and are they going to pay and are they going to get minutes and then maybe pay a price for it? Like, or is he just going to say, okay, you guys are going to grow at least for the first 6 months or 3 months just by playing a few minutes here and there and training with Mbappe and Chouameni and all those guys? Or do we think that they're going to get a more significant role?
No, I think it's probably what we saw a little bit on Tuesday. Gonzalo Garcia coming on as the Mbappe backup, and in this case, Vini came off, Mbappe went on to the left, and Garcia centrally, Mastantuono, the backup to Brahim, certainly in this game. Then you could have other options, as we said, on that right wing, but I think that looked pretty good, and Mastantuono brings you something a bit different to the other forwards. And then for Endrick, he's again on the same level as Gonzalo Garcia, probably. You think he got the number 9, which I think is quite significant, the number 9 shirt after Mbappe swapped for the 10. And so you've got those different options. Are they going to play a lot? No. Is
that a mistake in Endrick's case, especially because he did this all
he
of
will be
last
the one,
season?
really, yeah, I guess. And we haven't touched yet about Rodrygo too. So I think for Mastantuono at 18, you probably take what you can for the first 6 months or season. Same for Gonzalo Garcia. You were very promising in the Club World Cup. This is very different. This is the season. And for Endrick, I mean, he's injured right now, and I'm not sure he's going to go on loan somewhere. So for the first 6 months, you see what happens, and then maybe decide something different in January. But it's a tricky situation.
And that brings us to Rodrygo, which I was saving the best for last, because we've talked about this a lot. Every time he says the same, Xabi Alonso says the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's situations where, we know this having covered the game a long time, coaches toe the party line. And I think the party line coming from the White House, from Florentino, is Rodrygo, he either stays or we let him go for a big fee. And to do that, we can't say or signal that he's not part of your plans.
Yeah.
So every time he talks about how important he is, but then the people can see that he never plays them.
Never.
How does this end? Because I know people are always going to wheel out Saudi. I don't know how Rodrygo. I mean, Rodrygo's got World Cup coming up and everything, right? That's a tough sell. Do you think he's handling it? I don't blame Xabi Alonso as a new coach who's just arriving in, even though he is Xabi Alonso, not making any waves. But, but this isn't good for him.
No. It's not good for Rodrygo.
It's not good for Xabi Alonso.
It's not good for Xabi Alonso either. Rodrygo apparently hasn't told Real Madrid he wanted to leave. Maybe he's
not going to. Why would he?
Yeah. But I guess he can't have a season where he doesn't play at all. And yes, there's enough games he would play there and there a little bit. But I think the signal is pretty strong from Xabi Alonso, whether it's the Club World Cup or even in the opening LaLiga game. There you prefer Brahim Diaz first of all, then you prefer Mastantuono, and maybe it's just a question
maybe you'll
of profile.
prefer Arda Güler when Camavinga's fit. Yeah,
and I guess Rodrygo's best position is definitely not as a right winger, so maybe that's also in Xabi Alonso's mind. So okay, this could be Brahim Diaz's favorite position. In Mastantuono, certainly where he played there. Güler had played there many times before, and certainly as a left footer, it's better for him than for Rodrygo, who prefers the left-hand side where he cannot play, certainly not at Real Madrid. So, I don't know. I think there's no market for him, certainly not at the price that Real Madrid want. And maybe they'd be willing to go down from 100 million or 90 million to 60 or 70. Even at that price, I don't think anyone moves for him.
I think the only way it happens is high-profile club who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, takes him on loan, Champions League club, takes him on loan, option to buy, and then they go and sort this out later. I think that if he does go, I'm not saying it's a likely thing. If he does go, I think that is really the only viable solution for him at this stage. And by the way, I hate to say it, when you make mistakes, when you make build unbalanced teams 1-2 years ago, it has knock-on effects down the line. And I think that's what we saw with the Mbappe signing. I'm not saying the Mbappe signing was wrong, but things could and should have been addressed there that weren't. All right, enough Real Madrid. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's go, Gab.
Alexander Isak issued a statement claiming that, quote, promises were broken and trust is lost. I love how he uses the passive voice. And he, of course, he was referring to Newcastle. The club hit back, saying they never promised to let him leave this summer. Obviously, there was been the supposed bid from Liverpool.
Yeah.
At least we finally heard from him.
Yeah, we did, and it's the kind of response that you expected. Well, the kind of statement you expected from him, and the response that you expected from Newcastle, who also said, like, you know, the whatever you can say, the valuation that we have for you was never met anyway. So they closed the door completely. That was not very open before. Like I said, I think it's way above Eddie Howe. I mean, it's a club that doesn't have a CEO or sporting director per se right now anyway at Newcastle. So the decisions are very much being taken at the top of who owns the club. And I just...
Who, Al-Ramayan, you think? He's not busy playing golf?
No, I think the Saudis have decided that he was not going to leave, so he's not going to leave. But I think something can still happen between now and the end of the transfer window in 10 days. I guess if Liverpool make a second offer, much improved. But the difficulty that Newcastle have as well to find a replacement is not helping.
Can I just say this from a communications perspective? And I don't really care, but I do communicate for a living. I hate it. If you are going to speak, you either stay silent, or if you're going to speak, you speak precisely. Because when you say promises were broken and trust is lost, that's been interpreted by some people as saying that he was going to get a new contract sort of a year ago with a release clause. Other people, of course, interpret it as saying you can go to Liverpool for this fee or whatever. Newcastle, were specific in what they promised back, but maybe this isn't what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Why all the confusion? Like I said, either stay silent,
yeah,
or come out with something very precise and don't talk in vague terms. It simply muddies things, but maybe that's the goal. I don't know.
And Gab, you wrote a piece for ESPN on the website suggesting that Article 17 gives Isak leverage here.
Yeah, so obviously you talk to 5 different lawyers, you get 5 different viewpoints, but several that I trust, as well as simply reading the guidelines, which are interim guidelines after the Diarra ruling, but they go more and more in the direction of players than clubs. As FIFA tries to in fact, FIFA have already been sued by people saying that they don't go far enough towards complying with European law on freedom of movement. Is that at the end of the season, so he needs to have 3 continuous years in the same contract, which he has now. But Article 17, which is the unilateral breach, meaning he just walks out, that can only be invoked at the end of the season, so within 15 days of Newcastle's final game. And the interesting thing is, compared to the past, what has changed is there's no injunction, there's nothing. He walks out, he signs with another team, he can play straight away. Newcastle can then pursue him for compensation, but that compensation doesn't come for another 18 to 24 months. And what I've been told is the way the compensation is calculated, and this was always the big risk. Greg, you remember the Matusalem case years ago, which is kind of what scared people off. Is basically calculated based on the residual value left on his contract, based on the wages left on his contract, based on his age, based on his performance. But I've been told it's going to be in the 50 to 60 million range, most likely. Could be more, could be less. It's simply because that is kind of the direction of travel. And remember, you can say, well, Newcastle turned around 110 million now. Yeah, but in a year's time, what's it going to be? So it's just a risk. And I think this is what emboldens Isak to essentially behave the way he does. Because I hate to say it, I don't care what promises people make to you verbally. Let's be very clear about this, Isak. You're acting unprofessional. You're acting unprofessionally. Yeah? Do we agree on this?
Yeah.
And the only way he can do this is because he has this threat hanging over the club. My guess is this still ends, but I'm not confident about this at all, with him signing a new deal with a player-friendly release clause, and they do the whole prodigal son thing. If not, it gets even uglier. Meanwhile, Jules, speaking of ugly, it's really ugly between Yohan Wissa and Brentford too. And he, of course, is one guy who's been linked to Newcastle to replace Isak.
Yeah, I mean, to replace Isak, more to replace Callum Wilson, I think. And Newcastle is still wanting another.
You.
Yeah.
Yohan doesn't appreciate that. Why can't
no. Yohan is my guy. He's from Paris, so Paris born and bred. But no, this is the fact. They would need. They would
replaces
look for,
the injured guy on the bench. Okay.
No, the guy who left the
I'm joking.
but still, but that's why they offered 40 million for him. Brentford won 60. You can think that 60 is a lot of money, too much for Wissa. But he also believed that he had an agreement with Brentford that they would let him go if the right offer came on the table, and now he's not happy.
He has a year left on his contract.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very bold from Brentford to ask 60 million for a guy with a year left.
That's why I think this will be sorted out in between. But for now, he's really, really not happy. And Brentford, I guess, have decided on the direction that they want to take in this, and they can't really change now. So it'll be interesting to follow.
I would not spend that on somebody who has a year left on his deal.
Yeah. After being named captain, Romero gets a contract extension to 2029 with Tottenham and becomes the highest paid player. I guess Gab, Thomas Frank really likes him.
Yeah, or Daniel Levy, Fabio Paratici, maybe. One of those guys evidently does. I think this is way over the top to give him everything with a new coach who's just arrived.
Yeah.
I mean, what did he show in let's not forget everything that happened before with Romero. But obviously, I hope it's a Thomas Frank decision. This is the kind of thing that should be a Thomas Frank decision. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits.
Yes.
Most assumed Eberechi Eze was on his way to Tottenham rather than Arsenal. But Jules, how could a Kai Havertz injury have changed all that?
Yeah, I think it played a bit in it, the fact that Kai Havertz, and we don't know yet exactly for how long he will be out, if it's a long injury, if it's a mid-injury or a short injury. We don't know yet. It's not looking great, to be honest.
It's a knee.
Yeah. I think they wanted Eze before, obviously. I think Eze wanted to come to Arsenal as an Arsenal fan, a former Arsenal Academy player. The fact that Arsenal had to sell first before being able to match the offer from Spurs was a bit of a problem. But they decided that they could speed that up, made that offer, and between the two, there was just never a match for Eze, I think. And for Palace, it's the same. Whether you get the money from Tottenham or Arsenal, doesn't change anything for them. So here he is on his way to the Emirates.
What I find interesting about Eze is, and this applies to both clubs, he's not walking into a starting position. At Spurs, we said they have a ton of winger attacking midfielder types, despite even Maddison's injury. And at Arsenal, it's the same thing. Because you're competing with, if we assume Odegaard and Saka will generally always play in the base lineup, as will Declan Rice, you're competing for essentially one spot if you want to come in from the left with Martinelli, with Trossard, who looks like he's not getting a longer contract, but he's getting a little bit more money. So there's belief in him. With Madueke, with Ethan Nwaneri, sticks around. That is a lot. But I also understand this guy who has such an incredible backstory. He's been around just about every club in London at one point or another. He wants to challenge himself and back himself at a Champions League club. So good luck to him.
Yeah. Milan are close to the centre forward they wanted, Gab, and it's neither Rasmus Højlund or Dusan Vlahovic.
No, it's Victor Boniface. You like the little double switch they did. Boniface. Yeah, Rasmus, we really like you. Yeah, Rasmus, please come. Rasmus like, oh no, I only want a permanent deal. Hoping that'll push it over the line. No, instead, it's Victor Boniface who's happy to come. You know why he's coming, right? Yeah. He wants to get away from Eric Ten Hag.
Absolutely.
Obviously, clearly.
Yeah, everybody does.
No, I think there's been disciplinary issues. There's belief in Patrick Schick. It's a 30 million buy option at the end for Milan, I think. Which I don't think is bad. I think the big thing is I don't want Milan to move away from Santi close the door on Santi. And a big commitment to Vlahovic, a big commitment on a permanent deal to Højlund would have done that. So good luck to Victor.
Yeah.
More details emerging from events in Marseille. And Jules, this is pretty incredible. We touched upon this on Monday. You're laughing. Ha, ha, ha. It's not amazing. Funny if you're a Marseille fan. It's freaking embarrassing. Both Rabiot and Jonathan Rowe are on their way out for fighting with each other.
Yeah, in the dressing room after the Rennes defeat on Friday night, we knew, and we mentioned it, you're right, on Monday's show, that they were insulting each other, like a bit of argy-bargy. And it took another twist massively first on Monday when they were expelled from the first team squad and not allowed to train with the first team, which they didn't and still haven't. And then on Tuesday, where they were told by the club that both of them were on the transfer list, that they had to find another club. For Jonathan Rowe, you understand he was already on the transfer list. They were already going to sell him to try to reinvest that money. For Rabiot, however, this is the big one because still only a couple of weeks ago, they were saying that he was the best player they'd ever played with or met or dealt with, that he was amazing, that he was the leader, the highest earner, everything you want. And he went from this to being the pariah and out of the club. So in the Rabiot camp, we believe that you don't get rid of somebody for a fight in the dressing room. And that they actually wanted, because he only has 1 year left on his contract, they could not agree an extension through the summer, that they were going to lose him for nothing at the end of the season, and they just wanted to recoup some money. That's their view of it, the Rabiot camp. At Marseille, they keep saying that the fight was so ugly and so violent that they could not move past it, and that they had to sanction both players by transferring them out. I don't know. I think the truth is probably a bit in the middle, but I don't know what Marseille would do to replace him, and even to find him a club with 10 days to go.
Did Zed be traumatized by this? But
I don't believe. Come on.
I'll tell you this, by the way, to what the Rabiot camp says. If they want to recoup some money and move him on. Yeah, dude, that's not the way to do it 10 days before the end of the transfer window, using this as an excuse. Rabiot is on big money. Right?
Massive.
And that could be part of it. You want to save it if you couldn't agree a new deal, maybe limiting his wages, turning him into bonuses like Paris Saint-Germain to do. But right now, if you go and you put a price tag on Rabiot, it's tough to find somebody who's going to take it. I think this could end up as a loan and then maybe free agency at the end of the season, and he sees what's up if he's not going to play there.
It's a tricky one, especially when you know Rabiot's mum, who's the agent and dealing with everybody.
Exactly.
It's not going to be easy. Back to Rasmus Højlund, Gabi. He's become an option for Napoli now after the Romelu Lukaku's muscular injury, which has ruled him out until the new year.
Yeah, so first of all, I feel really bad for Lukaku.
Yeah.
It is a muscular injury. He could have had surgery or he could have had treatment. If he has surgery, he would have missed most of the season, so he's opted for the treatment. That, however, means he's not going to be back until December, which is why he's not going in the Champions League squad or the Serie A squad. All of a sudden, they veered hard towards Rasmus Højlund. What I don't follow here so much, if Højlund didn't want to move to Milan because he only wants a permanent deal, how's Naples different? I mean, I guess Napoli have Champions League football, but the alternative is Artem Dovbyk. Right now, all they have is Lorenzo Luca, who is an extremely large man, even bigger than Lukaku.
Yeah.
But I think Conte likes to have an alternative. United are trying to find a home, not just for Højlund, but Alejandro Garnacho too. So there's interest from Bayern and, of course, Chelsea. The story goes on forever.
It goes on forever, Gabi. You're right. I mean, Bayern's still looking for a left winger that they, in a way, are found with Diaz, but they need another one. So we'll talk about that even further later with another player they linked with. Alexandro Garnacho wants Chelsea. Okay, great. But Chelsea are offering less money than what United want, but United are not in a strong position because everybody knows that they want Garnacho out and he's not even in the squad and he's not even playing. So that doesn't put United in a strong position at all. I still think this could happen to Chelsea, but they just need to find an agreement.
Garnacho, another Article 17 eligible candidate next June, by the way.
Yeah.
Isn't it fun? Remember that picture that they all took under your second Eric Ten Hag reference of the show, where you had Garnacho, Højlund, and Kobbie Mainoo?
Yeah.
And now you got two guys who are pariahs at the club, and the third guy is somewhere on the bench.
At the end of the bench. Yeah. And it would not be Chelsea, Gabi, if they were not willing and dealing. Renato Veiga is off to Villarreal. Well, good for him. While Julio Enciso is on his way from Brighton via a stop in Strasbourg, as you do.
As you do if you're Chelsea. 22 million plus 5 in bonus to Renato Veiga. I think this is really good business.
Really
I think the guy has an upside. He's just not going to get it at Chelsea. And Cisso's a player I love. Just seems like they're just adding players, but we won't see him at Chelsea for a while. The Brazil squad for the upcoming qualifiers against Chile and Bolivia is announced Monday, according to O Globo. No Vincius Jr. in it. You surprised?
No, because he's suspended for the first game against Chile. So I guess there's no point having him for the squads when you know who he is and what he does. So I'm not surprised.
Around for the crack.
No, not really. No. So he can have a rest. But no Vini. However, Rodrygo and Neymar. I included Gabi, and Neymar got a rough treatment from the Santos fan.
Yeah, I think this is a good way to cheer Neymar up, I think. Obviously, it was over the weekend. They got destroyed 6-0. Over there, they have ultras. Now, I'm always goes back and forth on this, right? But it is customary in certain countries. We've seen it happen in Italy. I think it happens in some places in France. Certainly happened in Portugal. Certainly happens in Germany. If you lose, you go and you face your supporters.
Yes.
And you apologize and you explain and you, quote, get motivated. Sometimes it turns into outright intimidation and criminal behavior, which obviously nobody's going to condone. Equally, at the same time, there's a sense of ownership. That's what happened to Neymar. Hopefully, getting called up will cheer him up. This was way, way back on Monday, but Leeds United beat Everton on their return to the Premier League.
Yes.
The mighty Leeds United. That penalty James Tarkowski gave away leaves your boy David Moyes fuming.
Yeah, not happy at all about the way the penalty was given. I mean, to start with...
Let's describe it for those who haven't seen it.
But to start with, Leeds played really well, much better than Everton. Everton were never really in the game, and Leeds, hands up to Daniel Farke and this team.
Can we have some love for my boy Willy Gnonto?
Absolutely.
All over the place, yes.
I mean, Dan James, pretty incredible too. And just everybody, really good performance from Leeds, who deserve to win. However, that penalty, the handball on Tarkowski on a shot, where his arm seems to be still quite close to his body, certainly the way I saw it, I thought was a little bit...
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So his arm is by his body, next to his side, no question about it. But he moves his body into the way of the shot, and obviously his arm is on the side of his body, and so it strikes his arm.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the intent is obviously to try to block it with his body, not his arm.
Yeah.
So there's no question of it being incidental, being accidental, right? But at the same time, the arm is by his body. This is one of those things which really, I don't know what the correct decision is. I don't know what the guidance is. It feels... What do you think? I mean, it feels
because
wrong.
you've given it in the first place, then VAR can't really...
Yeah, no, I get that part. But if you were the referee and you saw this super clearly, would you give that penalty?
I would not. But that's why I thought it was really harsh. But
you would not, because he's moving towards the ball.
Yeah. And Luka Nemcha scored the penalty, which I believe, has made this Premier League weekend, the first weekend of the Premier League this season, with the most debutants scoring on a Premier League opening weekend ever.
Wow.
So since 92-93, where everybody obviously were making their Premier League debut. So, but I think that's 9 if you count that penalty, and the record was 8 like 12 years ago, something like that. So yeah, a pretty good weekend if you're a newcomer to the Premier League. Well,
it's 10 if you count Chiesa.
Sorry, that's a bit mean, but it's fair. Harsh but fair. Juventus have to shift a ton of players before the window closes. Gab, I bet they're delighted they managed to send Douglas Luiz back to England to Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, last season he's made just 3 starts.
Yeah.
And it's not like he was unfit because he was on the bench. I think he came off the bench 22 times in Serie A alone. And let's not forget, the club made such a big to-do about signing Douglas Luiz. So clearly there was a breakdown. He didn't play with either manager, Thiago Motta or Igor Tudor. Make of that what you want. And on top of that, you had that whole bizarro, mega complicated Arrobarena, Ealing Jr., blah, blah. I'm glad he gets to play.
Yeah.
Because his obvious tutor doesn't like him, or likes him about as much as Motta did, which isn't very much. Yeah. I hope Juve fans go and direct some of their bile for this and some of the many stupid things that happened towards Mr. Giuntoli, because I think people need to be accountable. Yeah. And he's the guy who was in charge. You cannot blame this on Andrea Agnelli. You cannot blame this on you can blame a lot on Motta. But this is the guy who did this.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a really good player in there after a year of being treated like this and performing like this and maybe getting a little bit more round. I don't know, but Juve will be very happy if a year from now they can get it's an obligation to buy 30 million reportedly based on appearances. So curious to see how often he gets off the bench.
Yeah.
Bayern, meanwhile, possibly fishing in what were once Texter water.
Yes.
Sorry, I got to shoehorn JT into the
Always.
show. It's hard because he's not at Palace anymore.
He's not.
He's given up his, sort of given up at Lyon, right? So, Botafogo contact and Molenbeek contact. Yeah,
I know.
Harder. So
come
back, JT. Buy a club and start doing silly things nobody understands. And then,
again.
There you go. Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're linked with Malik Fofana.
Yeah, because as we said earlier when we talked about Garnacho, they're still looking for another left winger or somebody who could play right or left, like Fofana, who's a super good, super talented young player who was very good with Lyon on their opening game of the season away at Lens, who wants to stay but also knows the reality of what Lyon are about, and they need money, they need to balance their books, they need to bring money in. So Fofana is, I think, very at ease with the fact that he could be leaving this month, although he would rather stay and have another season in Ligue 1, which is perfect for him. Also in Europe, in the Europa League. But it's not. This is not in his own hands. He will do what the club tells him to do. And if there's a big offer on the table for Fofana on the Lyon table, then I'm pretty sure the club, unfortunately, will will accept it.
What's the price range going to be, you think?
Ideally, they
for Lyon
want
to
60
accept
million, which is
60.
the price for wingers this summer. And I know wingers more experience than Fofana, but Fofana is very, very talented.
Big upside. That's what you're paying
he's
for.
very young and a lot of room for improvement too. So we'll have to see. From one winger to another, Gabi, Leon Bailey is officially a Roma player.
Yes, and very much in the Bailey playbook. I'm sorry, this is really mean, but crikey. He arrives and he's like, yeah, we got Leon Bailey, yes, loan obligation to buy, fantastic. And then his first training session, the guy gets injured again.
Yeah.
So we've kind of seen this happen before. Roma, the Roma fan base, Rome Radio, you're not super excited about Leon Bailey because guess what? They have the internet too. And they said like, okay, this guy's decent player, but you know, they brought in Asensio and Rashford last year. And, when we watched Villa play, the guys who were good were Morgan Rogers and McGinn and Asensio. Not this dude. Yeah. This guy was sitting at the end of the bench. But, so the club spun the tale that, I have no idea if this story is true. I'm assuming it's true, that Leon Bailey's best friend is Jadon Sancho.
Okay.
Did you know this? It was news to me.
No. Yeah, me
too. But they made it seem as where Bailey goes, Sancho will follow. What happened? Sancho says no. Sancho says no to everybody.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the Jadon Sancho long-term game plan is, but it doesn't appear to involve Roma.
No.
Although, I don't know, maybe they'll up their offer for Sancho. Maybe he'll rethink it because if Bailey's injured, he can go and hang out with
I guess so.
And take Bailey's minutes. Why not? Galatasaray are busy raiding Manchester City, meanwhile. 15 million euro offer for Manuel Akanji, 10 million euro offer for Ederson. It's kind of weird. It wasn't that long ago that these guys are absolute mainstays in fact, it was 2 seasons back, right? That they won the Champions League.
Yeah, exactly.
And they won the 6-2 or they won the treble anyway.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and Ederson instrumental in what Pep Guardiola has been doing at City for his profile. We mentioned that enough when we talked about Donnarumma. Akanji, versatility in defense, can play centre back, even right back 3, back 4, anything you want. Very smart player that again fits very well what Guardiola is doing at the club. But Guardiola also says my squad is too big. I need players out. I can't leave players at home on a match day, which I can understand. That's decent money, I think, for Akanji at his age.
And with his contract situation as well.
Contract situation for both of them. And I guess Akanji won't be replaced because they've got enough defenders. But certainly for Ederson, then that makes way for Donnarumma. So,
you believer? Are you now a believer that you the Donnarumma thing?
No. Well, it will happen because they're the only one for him and they want him. I don't understand why they want him because he doesn't fit what they do. But it's the only club that wants him. So that's the only place he can go. He's not going to stay. So,
Wasn't he a key player on a team that became... I forget what the team is, but they won the Champions League last year?
Yeah.
They're pretty good, yeah.
But what do you mean?
Donnarumma. He was a key player on the team. Made some big saves on the team.
No, but he's not going to stay in Paris. What was the team? He's not going to play.
No, I'm joking. No. But I'm saying about why they would want him, not why he's going to stay in Paris, right?
Yeah, no, they want him because he's the best on his line. But his profile doesn't suit the Premier League.
Like Luis Enrique, that maybe Pep is more comfortable with goalkeepers with different types of profiles. If they, I don't know. It seems weird. It seems weird to me too, for the money because this is De Bruyne money, right? That he wants, right? That's the part that doesn't fully fit for me.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the guy's 26 years old. You get a goalkeeper who can be a top-level goalkeeper for the next 10 years.
Yeah, sure.
You lock it up.
Yeah. Ben Doak has moved to Bournemouth from Liverpool on a £25 million deal, and Kostas Tsimikas looks also on his way out.
We always say this, that the great directors of football are good at selling, I probably don't say that. You're good at transferring players out for a fee. Ben Doak is a guy I really, really liked. I don't know if there's some sort of buyback or whatever involved. It's interesting to me that Slot doesn't think that he can be part of the forward rotation or that maybe he shouldn't be part of it. Because let's face it, Liverpool are down a striker. Right? Or down a forward.
Down a forward.
And I think Federico Chiesa, most people would have thought that he would be moving on as well. Now, I don't know if he's going to end up staying because they need a body, right?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing Slot doesn't think that he's going to be, maybe his ceiling is what it is. But I thought he looked really, really good. Tsimikas as well, they're going to raise money for. And as of right now, we talked about how much they spent. The numbers are 270 million out, 200 million in. They'll get some money, a little bit of money for Tsimikas, maybe even Elliott at some point. I'm not saying they're going to come close to
more than
breaking.
200 million, but yeah, it's pretty much balanced out. Yeah?
Well, when you consider that last season they didn't spend anything, so or almost nothing. So well done, Liverpool there. Curious, of course, whether they end up pulling the Isak trigger.
Yeah.
And I think they still need to spend money on Gay, right?
Yeah, as well, yeah.
We had the first legs of the Champions League qualifiers, Jules. And it's a very rough night for the Glaswegian club.
Yes.
Rangers and your hero, Russell Martin, lose at home to Bruges.
Yeah.
And Mr. Champions League, Hans Van Aken.
Of course.
That's 3-1. While Celtic are held 0-0 by something called Kairat from Kazakhstan.
Yeah, Kairat Almaty, if you want even to put it like that, who defended well in this game. For Rangers, they did everything but defend well. They were 3-0 down after 29 minutes, 26 minutes. Horrendous defending. And then Russell Martin blaming everybody but himself for the defeat, which I found really strange. When you just arrived, it's the fans' fault, it's the club's fault. It's been tough for them for years and years and years, so there's nothing I can do.
He said they had one good season in the last 15 years.
Yeah. Wow, okay.
In Europe, they've
Russell.
had decent results, by the way, Russell.
Yeah, and also, and it's not because they haven't won the title before that. It was obviously a bad season either. Yes, it's better if you win the title. But yeah, so I'm not sure. Obviously, both games now, second leg will be away from home in Kazakhstan. Long way to go for Celtic. In Belgium, with the back against the wall, certainly for Rangers. I don't know. I don't see either of them qualifying. I guess Celtic in slightly better position, but it won't be easy to go to Kazakhstan.
I think if Bruges qualify, I think Solis is staying, which I think is also a big deal for those transfer market watchers.
And meanwhile, Gab, Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce missed a golden opportunity against Benfica.
Yeah, well, this is the club. People forget this because Jose Mourinho, of course, identified with Porto and stuff when we won the treble. But he had that stint early on. I think after Jupp Heynckes was sacked at Benfica. I think that was actually his first full-time top coach job. And you could just imagine it, right? It's Fenerbahce, it's Mourinho, Benfica come in. 0.34 XG on both sides.
Yeah,
and the last 20 minutes, Benfica down to 10 men because Florentino Luiz getting sent off, and they can't get it over the line. It's going to be a cauldron in the return leg.
I mean, the best is probably what Mourinho said after the game when he said, like, you saw the way Benfica was playing, that they wanted to come here and just defend. And then he said, but who am I to talk? I went to Barcelona with 10 defenders one game. So, fair enough, Jose.
Can I say something? We often make fun of the guy for obvious reasons, but respect. This is genuinely funny. It's genuinely funny. Yeah, and if he's learned to kind of poke fun of himself as well,
exactly,
then that's a good thing. Well done, Jose.
I agree.
And good luck at the Estadio da Luz.
Yes.
Well, Pogba is now in Monaco, of course, and apparently has forgiven his brother Matthias. I find this whole I find the whole story is mind-blowing and extraordinary. I'd like you to sum it up quickly for us.
Yeah, I mean, remember 3 years ago now, I think, Pogba was the victim of
extortion attempt.
Extortion attempts led by one of his own brothers. He's got twin brothers who are older than him. It's one of them, Matthias, and some friends that he had since his childhood who grew up with him. For some of them, went to jail. They went to a tribunal, and they were convicted of that extortion attempt.
By the way, sorry. When we say extortion attempt, we're not talking about, oh, Paul, give me some money so I can buy a new motorbike. Otherwise, I'll tell the media mean things about you. No. We're talking about essentially getting kidnapped by people with balaclavas and automatic weapons. Yeah,
gunpoint. Yeah. It was a horrendous ordeal for Pogba. And I guess you learn to forgive, especially when it's your own family. And it was the Pogba twins' birthday this week. And they were all reunited together with their mums as well. So the three brothers, Paul, including Matthias, despite what happened a few years ago. And I like it. I think for Paul to move on, he had to forgive, and he did, and he found the strength to forgive his own brother for this horrendous incident, and I think that's good for him. The Bundesliga has taken a novel approach with his highlights, Gab.
Yeah, so look, we go into sort of more of a football business type thing, but we always hear from broadcasters, no, we want exclusive rights to this, we want exclusive rights to that, we're not going to share anything, right? Which is generally the attitude in most European countries, but certainly in Italy, certainly here in the UK, it's always been that, right? The Bundesliga are saying, 9, we're going to go and we're going to separate them out. We'll give it to different broadcasters in different contexts. And what made a lot of headlines is also the role of YouTube, because they're not just putting their highlights and games on YouTube, which others have done, but they've gone to two very successful kind of YouTubers. One is the YouTube version of the Overlap podcast, which involves our friends Ian Wright and Gary Neville. Yeah. The other one is this Mark Goldbridge guy who's got a massive following against Manchester United fans.
United fan, yeah.
I don't know how this is going to work, because especially on the Goldbridge angle, you have a really big audience.
Yeah.
Presumably people tune into it to hear him talk about Manchester United.
Yeah, you would think so.
And presumably part of the reason he's successful is because he comes across as authentic, right? So I won't be watching because I have other stuff to do, but I'll be curious to see how he approaches it with, he says, guys, we've done this deal with the Bundesliga. I'm giving it a shot. You'll be getting some coverage. Nobody wants him to think, oh, look, you're selling out and, used to make fun of these people and, whatever. So it's an interesting one. It just shows how I think things are evolving out there.
Yeah.
Jules. Aww. Okay, we can't kick Texter around this show, and we haven't referred to Peter Bosz. So let's talk about Erik ten Hag. He's getting rid of everybody. Double A. Amin Adli. He's leaving Bayer Leverkusen for Bournemouth.
Yeah, for Bournemouth for 30 million euros, which is what Bayer Leverkusen wanted. He was very good the season of the title, not so good last year when he had injuries, and it was just not as successful of a season for Bayer Leverkusen as a whole.
Sorry. On Amin Adli, remember the game when Clever Clogs played him at center forward?
Yeah, as well.
Against Bayern and then undid the season?
Yeah, second striker is his best position, really. He can also play wide. He's got so much space. And at 25, I think he really wanted a new chapter in his career and come to the Premier League, where I think his style fits the league and certainly fits the way Bournemouth are playing. So this is a good move for him.
So wait, it's him wanting a new chapter, not him wanting to get away from Erik ten Hag.
Well, I was going to say,
here we go.
Is there too many departures now to not be a coincidence?
I mean, they've raised a ton of money, so I don't know. I generally don't know what the approach is now, because they've brought in some players. They haven't brought in that many players.
No.
There's certainly more departures than incomings. I don't know if it's a case where Bayer Leverkusen says, hey, look, we have one of the biggest stadium naming rights deals in the world and so on. We got a corporation behind us. But we're still a club with, our stadium holds 26, 29,000, whatever it is. And we did spend a ton of money for when Xabi Alonso was there to give him the tools to go do something important, and he did. But now we got to kind of claw some of it back. And if that's the case, did Erik ten Hag know when he showed up here? Is he annoyed that they're letting these pieces go? Does he not want them?
Well, like you said the other day, maybe he's on board with the transition. He's happy to get rid of all those players, bring some new ones, which he's done already, Kwanzaa, etc., etc. Maybe, but I don't think it's a good look when you just arrive at a club and everybody's leaving.
Keep a look on Palacios as well.
Yeah. Atalanta have their Matteo Retegui replacement, Gab, and it's Nikola Kristovic, who signed from Lecce.
Yeah, here's my question, right? So, man goes and scores a moderate amount of goals. It was 7 for Retegui, and it was 7 the first season, 11 second season for Kristovic. Sort of old school center forward type scores. Moderate amount of goals for mid to lower or to bottom half of the table team.
Yeah.
Moves to Atalanta, becomes top scorer, and then gets sold to Saudi Arabia for 65 million. Hey, does lightning strike twice?
I don't know, but that was with Gasperini as well, who's not here anymore. Can Juric make Kristovic what Gasperini made of Retegui?
Charismatic Juric. Yeah, Kristovic was good for Lecce on a team that scored many goals, but it does kind of, to me, bring to mind the idea that when we judge strikers and goal tallies, we always have to look for context, especially with certain profiles of strikers, because you need people to get them the ball. If they don't get the ball, they're not going to score. And the same, by the way, we talked about this on Monday with Gyökeres as well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, let's laugh at Gyökeres. Dude, you only get 3 touches in the box. Yeah, but you have to watch the games, make up for yourself. Did he only have 3 touches in the box because he kind of stank up the place in his first game or whatever? Or was it the style of play that means he maybe isn't going to be as prolific as he was last year? So this is why context matters, and you can't just look at goal scoring numbers. Some people were absolutely horrified when Nike started making red Brazil jerseys ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Jules, you're far more well-versed in kid issues. Go read it. But they've stopped doing it now, and I'm assuming they're happy.
Yeah, that came from the Brazilian FA and the new president who said, like, hang on, we can't have this. Already when it was kind of announced or when he leaked, the fans were horrified. I think even some of the players were like, Red, this is not possible. And I guess some freedom that you can have with clubs for the third kit or the fourth kit even, depending on the clubs, don't really apply to national teams. No. National teams is very, very different. It's your country's colours, and you can't deviate too much from that. So the red for Brazil, who, as you know, all of you listeners, who people who watch us are big fans of geography. There's no red at all in the Brazilian colours. This was pushing it a bit, and
there's no red at all in Brazil. Period. In the entire country, it just doesn't belong. And I have no problem.
I don't even know where it came from. That red idea.
Can I suggest a marketing guy at Nike saying like, "Oh, look, World Cup in the U.S." A lot of people already own Brazil jerseys because, let's face it, they look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Rather than making another green one or blue one as a second kit, let's make something totally different that nobody has, and we'll sell millions. That's where it came from. Come on, man.
Barcelona women's team is one of the giants of European football, as we know, but Gab, they're getting hit hard by cuts at the club.
Yeah, really interesting piece in The Athletic, actually, where they point out that right now they only have 17 active player contracts. More departures expected. Of course, Fiorina Rolfo is already gone. There's a bunch of really important players who are a year away from free agency and they haven't had them extended, like Salma, like Alexia Putellas, like I think Mapi Leon as well. And it's a Caroline Graham Hansen as well. And apparently this has to do, or what they suggest is that this has to do with the fact that when LaLiga calculate their wage caps and their limitations, they look at the club as a whole. Right, they don't separate
men and
women, the basketball team from the, and obviously Barcelona are in a terrible position, in part because of spending the men's team. So the allegation, and I have no idea if this is accurate, is that they're paying a price for the restrictions placed on the men's team. This is a broader issue as well, which is that Barcelona absolutely go and dominate, obviously the La Liga Femenine. And I think they're probably right. There's too many teams. And so players go there and say, oh, look, I win 6-0 every week, but I don't really improve.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe if I was here in England, the Women's Soccer League, at least I could, or Women's Super League rather, I wish I'd get 2 or 3 competitive games a year. If I played for Lyon or Paris Saint-Germain, I could play against Lyon or Paris Saint-Germain. So I think this comes into it too. It's a complex issue. I've said it a million times. I am not averse to some sort of Super League format for the top women's team. It's ridiculous. If this story is accurate and they are paying a price for mistakes made by Bartomeu 7 or 8 years ago and possibly continued by our friend Laporta, that's really screwed up.